Hi, my name is Sarah and this is my service dog Bailey, and today I want to talk a little bit about how to bring up a service dog to your doctors. I know that a lot of people have differing opinions on this, on whether it should always be the doctor to make the first move about a service dog, or whether it's okay for a handler to, or a future handler to suggest that and make that first step. In my opinion, whoever knows the research about it or thinks of it as a potential solution first is okay to bring it up, as long as it's a viable solution for what struggles a person is facing. It's in the US, it's not required to have a doctor's prescription or a letter about your service animal, unless it is for housing or flying. Those are the only two things that require, or potentially could require, a letter, either to be provided to the airline saying that, you know, your animal is an emotional support animal or a psychiatric service animal, because the law treats those two the same, or for housing assistance animals, all fall under the same umbrella term for the Fair Housing Act. But the Americans with Disabilities Act does not require any letters to prove that an animal has been prescribed or saying that they deserve access. So the first thing you want to do is make a list, write down how your disability affects you day to day. The Americans with Disabilities Act does define a disability as something that affects your ability to complete and perform day-to-day activities. It also includes in that definition a condition that has the history of doing so or the perception of doing so, but that gets into the nitty-gritty of the definition. So I do want to mention that that part is there, but we're going to focus more on the it currently affects your day-to-day life. After you have a list of how your disability affects you, you want to think about what tasks can an animal or a dog be trained to perform to help you with that. So, for example, if you can't hear when someone is approaching you, and you would like a dog to alert you, like with a nudge on the hand of the side that the person is approaching you on, that is a task that they can be trained to perform. If you struggle to pick things up that you've dropped because of some sort of cardiac condition, or honestly any other number of conditions that could do that, then you can train an animal to pick up dropped items or pick up items that you point at. You can also train a task to guide you out of an area if you start to have a panic attack, to get you to a safe and quiet space. That is another task that can be trained. So you want to, in your research, come up with a list of tasks that can be trained. I would also join some Facebook groups related to service animals, look at some forums, ask questions. In most of the Facebook groups I'm in for service dog handlers, if you post something like, "Hello, I struggle with this, I'm looking into getting a service animal to help me out. What are some things that I should consider?" Or what are some tasks that you think my dog could help, a dog could help me to mitigate my disability. You want to get as much information as possible as what this would look like for you. As you're considering all of that, you also want to consider what it would look like if this idea came to fruition. What would life be like for you if you actually had a service animal? So if you are looking to get a service animal for extreme anxiety, for example, sometimes having a service dog brings all the attention to you. Everywhere you go, people are looking your way. You get a lot of strangers coming up to you in public, things like that. If that's something you can handle, then a service dog might be a viable option. If that would just make your condition worse and make it harder for you to cope, maybe it's not the option for you. Another example is that if you are struggling to take care of yourself on a day-to-day basis, or you don't think you could take care of another living being, that's another thing to consider. Service animals are not like any other kind of medical equipment. They are living, breathing creatures that require exercise and love and attention and grooming and bathing and feeding. It's like having a child that your life also depends on sometimes. So it's very important that you have the time and energy and financial capacity to take care of them. So once you have done all the research you can do and then continue to research after that, the next step is going to be to create a list of talking points. I recommend going into this conversation with your provider with a list of 5 talking points, maybe a max of 10 if you're really ambitious, but I suggest keeping it closer to 5 because you don't want to just throw a bunch of information at them and just expect them to say yes. But you also don't want to just mention 1 or 2 things and it be thrown under the rug. You want to give them enough information so they can then do their own research or start to consider what you're saying. So on this list of talking points might be how your disability affects you day to day and the specific tasks that can be used to help you with those. It might also be helpful to think about what it would look like if you had a service animal and the independence that you would gain, and talk to your provider about how it would be helpful to you and how it would impact your life. The purpose of this conversation is to introduce the idea, not to brainwash your provider into just writing you a letter or giving you a prescription. After making your talking points, you are going to want to make that appointment with your doctor. My suggestion is to give them a heads up. If you can, whoever you're scheduling the appointment with, let them know, in this conversation, in this appointment, I'm going to bring up the potential of having a service animal so that they can know what might be talked about, so that if they want to do prior research, they can, or they can choose to wait to hear what you have to say. It's important that you're not treating your doctor in this as someone you just have to convince, or someone who doesn't know anything on the topic, because they are medical professionals and some of them know a lot about service animals and some of them know nothing. And so I think it would be pretty safe to assume that your provider is somewhere in the middle and not on either extreme, and then just adapt your conversation to what they ask you and what they seem to know once you're there. After you schedule the appointment and you give them a heads up, you want to have that list of talking points and address every point on it. I would also take notes on what your provider has to say. Like I said, they are a medical professional, and so their word is very valid, and you want to take them and their opinions into consideration because at the end of the day, they are your medical healthcare provider. While they are your medical professional and their opinion is to be valued, if having a service dog is going to be the best option for you in receiving the proper care and treatment for whatever disability you struggle with, then you want to have that option completely available to you. You want to be able to have that medical device to use. So don't back down right away if they say no. Listen to what they have to say, take it into consideration, do more research, and if you need to come back another time or several more times to revisit this discussion, then do so. Getting a service animal is not a quick 1 month, 2 month process. It takes 2 years to train a service animal typically, and if you are owner training, it's going to take that long, and if you are getting it from a program, depending on the program, you might be on a wait list that is shorter or longer than that. But it's not a quick process at all. It's something that takes time, and so if you want a quick fix, a service animal is not going to be your best option. But if you need a long-term medical device to help you, mitigate your disability and its effects on your life, then it might be, depending on what your disability is and the tasks you would like to train. So as this conversation with your medical health care provider comes to a close, and if they have told you, this is a good idea, or if they say, do some more research and get back to me, let's both, figure something out and then come together and talk about it another time later and see where we're both at. Some things you might want to consider is whether or not you would get a program trained and you would owner train your own dog. I did owner train Bailey with the help of a professional trainer, especially with her public access skills. But I do think program dogs do have a lot of benefits, and I would always recommend a program dog before I recommend owner training your own dog. But that is the topic of another video. But consider what both options would look like for you. Do some research on those. If for your housing situation, or if you need to fly anytime soon, then it would be very beneficial to get a letter from your healthcare provider about a prescription, or a letter stating that you need a service animal. That would also be very helpful in applying to programs, because they typically ask for a doctor's note stating that you are disabled and that this is how it impacts you and how a service dog would be helpful. Like I said earlier, a letter is not required by any means, except by some housing providers, and if your service animal is a psychiatric service animal, then it's required for airplane travel as of 2018, unless that changes. Overall, you should look at this conversation with your doctor as a continuing one. If your condition improves or worsens or just changes, sometimes a service animal won't always be the best option for you, and sometimes it will be. Some people are of the opinion that a service dog should be a last resort as part of your treatment plan. Personally, I am not of that mindset. I think that if a service animal would benefit you and that you would be able to care for them, and that, task trained, they would assist you in mitigating your disability in a way that another assistive device or medication might not be able to, then you should go for it. It takes years and years to figure out medication combos or treatment plans for people, and I'm just not a fan of waiting, the 5, 6, 7 years that it could take to try all the different drugs out there and not try a service dog all that time when it could be really helpful for you. That is just my personal opinion about whether or not service dogs should be last resorts. But like I said, a lot of people have differing opinions on that, and it's important to understand that your doctor might have a different opinion. And so if you guys don't see eye to eye, it's important that you talk through that and you have a continuous discussion about what it would mean to you to have a service dog. I just want to note again that having a letter or a prescription for a service dog is not required in the US for public access, or just to have a service dog in general, but for housing and airplanes it might be, depending on your situation. But it is very highly recommended, because adding something to your treatment plan should typically be something that you're discussing with your medical professionals to see how it's going to fit in to your whole treatment plan. And in addition, it just helps to have a third party who knows your condition or knows your disability and how it affects you and how it affects other people with the same condition, and talking about what tasks or what ways an animal might be able to help you. So they might see things that you can't see that the dog or animal could be trained to help you with, which is also very helpful. So that is my overall guide on how to bring up a service dog to your doctors. Basically, do research, do more research, make a list of things to talk about with your doctor, and actually say it to them, and continue this conversation. That is a very short summary of what I talked about in this video. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please put it in the comments down below. If you think I missed something or you have any other tips for people wanting to bring this up to their doctor, put it in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Thanks. Bye.